Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Buyer First Interviews. I am your host, Carol Mahoney. And if you haven't tuned into our series yet, you are in for a treat today because we have the incredible, the awesome, the power lifter, Lee Salz here with us today. And we're going to be talking, where is he? Here, where did he go? We're going to be talking today about good buying experiences, bad buying experiences, and what we can learn as sellers and managers and how we're going to create this ideal buying experience. Now, if you don't know who Lee is, well, then you are missing out. He is the founder and CEO of Sales Architects, an internationally renowned sales management strategist that specializes in building world-class sales forces. He's helped hundreds of companies in industries and sizes of varying shapes develop strategies, processes, and tools that they need. And that results in explosive and profitable growth. He is an entrepreneur, he is a best-selling author, and like me, is a results-driven sales consultant and an award-winning keynote speaker. Was named the 2022 Speaker of the Year by the Institute of Sales Excellence. Now, as a best-selling award-winning author of 6 business books, I didn't know that there were 6, Lee. His most recent one, Sales Differentiation and Sell Different, have been called the 1-2 punch that every salesperson needs to differentiate what and how they sell to win more deals at the prices that they want. Because it's not about what you sell, it's about how you sell. Now, his 7th book, which is focused on discovery strategy, is in development now, and it's going to be published in the fall of 2025. So we're way up ahead of the game here, Lee. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, you have actually, in your book, Sell Different, you talk about some buying experiences and how we can differentiate ourselves in that buying experience. This is why I was so thrilled that you were going to join us today. Can you tell us a little bit about, well, let's start with the bad buying experience, shall we? Can you tell me a little bit about what it was that you were trying to accomplish or do or buy and where you ended up with that?
So I have a very, very recent story, but I was not directly involved with it. I just heard about it.
Oh.
So my son, Steven, that you read about in chapter 1 of Sell Different.
Yeah.
When that book was written, when that story was written, he was heading into college. He's now a college senior.
Wow.
And was going through the process, because he's graduating now, of signing a lease for an apartment with his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've been touring different buildings. And he comes home this one day and he's all fired up. He's like, I went to this one building and there is no way I'm renting there. Like, really? Tell me about that. He goes, they rushed everything. They didn't show us a sample apartment. They wouldn't show us the amenities, nothing. I'm not renting there. Mm-hmm. And he kept going on and on and on about the experience. And I said, so now you understand what I do for a living. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, it had nothing to do with what they were selling, right? The building was gorgeous. Oh, yeah, it's a gorgeous building. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And it's in the location you're in. Oh, yeah, it'd be a great location. But the experience, this one salesperson was the brand. And he developed a perception of the product based on the experience with this individual. Mm-hmm. And he's done. Mm-hmm. Done. Yeah. Signed a lease elsewhere. Deal lost. Because he was going to sign somewhere, and this salesperson, because of how they sold, lost the deal.
Right. And even though it was probably a better product, or in this case, a better apartment building, it was that experience that turned him off from it. And
absolutely,
so often bad experiences that I've had, as well as others that I've heard have shared theirs. One of the things that they always say to me is that if this is how the experience is going to be in the beginning, what's it going to be later on when I give them my money?
Amen.
Right?
Absolutely.
So what was most important for, like in this story, for your son? What was the most important thing for him in that process that set this, the one that he ended up renting from, apart from the others?
So the one he rented from had a delightful experience. As a matter of fact, my daughter and her boyfriend also rented in that same building. Which is really nice, having 2 of my kids in the same apartment building in downtown Minneapolis. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But the experience was totally different. Totally different. The woman was warm and welcoming, showed the apartment, took their time with my son and his girlfriend, and came across genuinely interested in them as people, not just saying, let me grab your wallet.
Right. Yeah.
And that message really rang true for him. Really was a strong takeaway message for him.
And one of the things that occurs to me as we're talking about this is, everyone's talking about AI and how AI is going to replace salespeople and is going to, put all of these different things. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking people still want to buy from people. They still want to have that human experience, that personal,
Yes.
like that's something AI can't do. AI can't differentiate the buying experience when you're selling one human to another human. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, though.
I believe, and I've actually written an article because this AI is just the latest thing saying that salespeople are going to go away.
Along the list of things in the last 20 or so years.
Right. The internet was going to get rid of salespeople. Here's the thing. If salespeople aren't providing meaningful value in the buying experience, they deserve to lose their job.
Mm-hmm.
If I could have the same experience going online and buying that widget, buying that product, buying that service as I would interacting with you, you don't deserve to be here.
Mm-hmm.
So salespeople, I always tell them, like, you need to wake up every single day and challenge yourself with this question. What is it that I can do today that my buyers will find meaningful tomorrow? In other words, what investment can I make in myself to enhance my knowledge and skills that my buyers will find meaningful tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
And that's 7 days a week, holidays, every single day, challenge yourself with that. If
I would
not,
add to
you
that
will
too.
go the way of the dodo.
Yeah. And if you think about it, what is the things that are going to be meaningful to my buyers? But then one of the things that I also tell my salespeople when I'm coaching them is, what is the thing that your competition can't or won't do?
Right?
If that's another way for you to differentiate and create an experience that sets you apart from everyone else. Like even the example with the apartments, one example, you have them being treated basically like a number, which nobody likes that. You might as well have had a robot and a computer going through that, because if that's the kind of experience you want, then that's, easy to get.
Yeah.
But so being treated like a number versus that warm, welcoming, taking their time with them, asking and answering questions and actually taking a genuine interest in them as a human being. Sometimes that's all that's required to differentiate yourself. We've spent so much time talking about, value propositions and positioning statements and elevator pitches, and forget sometimes that the differentiation is just being a better human.
So one of my favorite questions to ask salespeople: on any given day, how many conversations do you have with prospects and clients? Phone, email, in person? They'll say 15, 20, 25, 30. Say, okay. How many conversations did each one of those 30 have with your company that day?
Right.
One. And we forget to make people feel special. It's just another call. It's just another meeting. It's just another presentation. It's just another proposal.
Yeah.
And it's such a simple thing to care and make people feel special. Everybody wants to talk about price. Well, if you think about those people you enjoy doing business with, it's not because it's cheap. It's because how you feel interacting with them. If they make you feel lousy, you're not going to want to buy from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And we all have countless experiences of those where we truly enjoy doing business with them.
I had an experience a couple of years ago. I had to have my thyroid removed due to thyroid cancer.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I sat down with the doctor, and it was kind of like that experience that your son had at first, right? Like he's just kind of going through things and rushing through things. When you hear the word cancer, your entire world stops. And I remember at one point I was just sitting there like in numb shock with this doctor, and he's kind of like just rapid fire going through this, and we're going to do this, this, and this, and this. And I'm like, I know that you deal with this every day, but this is the first time I've dealt with this. And this is the first time my family has dealt with this. So can we just take it back a moment and slow down for a second? And he just kind of looked at me and he was like, yeah, sorry. I didn't, like they're just going from one thing to next, like our salespeople are, and not even realizing that, yes, this is a human being who has risk factors in mind and fear in mind, and they're going through a big change. And really, sales is about helping them to reduce the fear and risk of change. And that's what change management is all about. So selling isn't about the widgets. It's about how do you help people manage change?
So I'll tell you a story that I've never told in an interview.
Okay.
So sales differentiation, I was under contract with one of the largest publishers in the world. And I fired him. because they made me feel like a number. They made this project feel like a number. The final straw for me was when they sent me a sample cover. They were doing it in some third world country. The word two-word title, sales differentiation. The word differentiation was hyphenated on the cover, like 2 lines. I was like, okay, I'm out. I'm done. I'm done. Fired them, and I switched because you want the names of the good ones. And I've been with HarperCollins. This book I'm writing now is my 3rd book with them, and they've been amazing. And right down to when Sell Different came out, the day it hit the streets, I got this package in the mail. Wasn't expecting a package. Cookies, about this big, of the book cover.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
From HarperCollins congratulating me. I mean, I wasn't expecting that, but they have always made me feel special. And I'm not looking to be like over the top, just that you care about this project at least as much as I do. That it's not just another book that you're going to add to the bookshelf.
Yeah. And it's little things like that, right? Like, we rely so much on the technology of text messages and emails that we forget that sometimes it's the small handwritten note or like, the little tiny gift that made us think of a particular person because of something that they shared has a humongous impact. But we don't do it because we're like that first, salesperson that your son talked to where we're just rushing through things. So which actually leads me to my next question is, how much do you think sales management is creating this very problem? And what is it that they're doing that's creating it?
I think there's a filter that's missing. Obviously, the sales management, they're being pressured to get the numbers. And of course, it travels downhill to the salespeople. They aren't directly saying to salespeople, treat everybody like a number. But they are pushing them to get deals done. And in the interest of getting things done, they sometimes default to that approach of, it's another unit, got to get it done. And it backfires. It backfires. Yeah. There's a keynote talk that I deliver titled Move the Sales Needle. And it's an educational piece for salespeople, for sales leaders. And everyone's looking for this holy grail in sales. No one bats 1,000 in sales, right? No one has 100% conversion ratio. So what I talk about that is the power of incremental gains. What if you could be 10% more effective from discovery to a presentation? From presentation to a proposal? From proposal to win? 10% more effective in each one of them. If you do the math, you'd have 1/3 more sales.
Right.
That's a lot of sales. Just 10%. And it's a word, a phrase, a strategy, a technique, little things that you can do that have a magical impact on results.
Yeah.
And that's what we should be insatiable looking for.
Yeah. And I think that you hit on it exactly when sales management, they're getting the pressure from above that they need to hit this number, whether it's the end of the month, the end of the quarter. And then they, because of desperation, default to that. Let's just offer a discount.
Yes.
And I've seen more deals blow up because of the pressure to get the buyer to do something. And then the use of discounts to create urgency, which is a complete BS. Because you don't create urgency with discounts. You create churn instead of retention with discounts. Another story. Right. But what I also then see happen is that then when they get into their coaching conversations with those individual salespeople, it's 15 different things that they need to fix. They're going through their entire pipeline and dissecting every deal and playing the devil's advocate. Yes. And the salesperson is like, I don't even know where to start. They're still trying to wrap their heads around all of these things that they're doing, which is creating more stress, which is taking that salesperson out of the present moment with their buyers. So they're not doing the things that their manager actually wants them to do, which is to listen and ask better questions. This is how I see management and companies create the very problems that they say that they're trying to solve for. They're creating it themselves, and they just default to this is how it's always been. This is how we've always done it. And don't take into account that we're dealing with human beings trying to manage change. And we're making it harder for them to do that. So tell me
I'll give you another component to that. And this is on the buyer seller side. So we go to them and we say, hey, I got great news. I can take 15% off the price. And the salesperson thinks they're going to be seen as a hero.
Yeah.
The buyer is saying, What a jerk. You were going to rip me off. You
Mhm.
put this price in front of me, and for no reason other than you want a deal, you're going to lower your price.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see you as a hero. I don't want to have lunch with you. I don't want to have anything with you.
Yeah, because I see you as a liar.
Correct.
Right. Exactly.
And then we're shocked why there's no trust of salespeople.
Right. Right. And we wonder why. Like, and then we get these questions of like, how do I build more trust with my buyers? I don't know. Stop lying to them. Stop using discounts to create a false sense of urgency. And the other thing, while we're on the subject of discounts, is when I see sellers on sales calls having to ask about budgets and ROI. They're so uncomfortable talking about money that they don't even take a breath before they're offering the discount at the end once they've said the price. Like sometimes it's just as simple as pausing long enough for them to be able to react.
Yes.
So let's dig into a little bit more on, we know what bad buying experiences look like. And I think as salespeople, as human beings, we have all had a bad buying experience. And the thing that kind of astounds me is how as salespeople, we forget what it's like to be in the role of the buyer. We slip on this costume in sales and like this armor that somehow this is totally different and they're not going to see me that way. So let's talk more about what does it take to create a really good buying experience. You had talked about your son in the rental property, but what other kinds of good buying experience have you maybe experienced, and what was the thing that set it apart?
Okay. So let's see. My wife and I just celebrated 26 years married.
Congratulations.
A couple months ago. I proposed to her in the Rose Garden at the White House.
Wow.
That's a nice little memory.
I want to know how you actually got in there.
One of my high school friends, still a dear friend to this day, he was the youngest branch chief in the history of FEMA. Of course, this is pre 9/11 and stuff. Mm-hmm. And he arranged for us to get a private tour at the White House. So it was my then girlfriend, now wife, him and his wife, just the four of us on a private tour of the White House. Mm-hmm. Wow. And so we're going around the White House. We're looking around, all this stuff. My wife's looking in this one. She's, oh, this is great. And of course, I'm like, where's this Rose Garden?
Because you're probably all nerves, right?
Yes. Yes. And, to this day, and I give her a hard time about this, she never said yes. I got down on one knee and she just kept going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Never actually said the word yes. Mm-hmm. And she's going up to Secret Service agents in the White House. Holding it, I just got engaged. And they start talking to them. We got a crazy lady in the White House. But leading up to that, obviously I had to buy a ring.
Right.
And there's this wonderful store, still in the DC metro area. They actually have a few locations. Mervis Diamond. I don't know if you've ever come across the name. And by the way, this friend that I was mentioning now lives in Maine where you are.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
The place to be.
So Mervis Diamond, when you walk in there, there's no rings, no stones on display. Nothing. You walk in, you're in this big room waiting for your appointment. You're then taken to a private room. Mm-hmm. Would you like a glass of wine or a glass of champagne? Mm-hmm. Right? Then we start having a conversation around education of diamonds, right? The color, the clarity, all that stuff. And what we envision as a setting and all these things. Nothing is in front of us. Nothing. It's just conversation with this perceived expert. Clearly, she had expertise. Mm-hmm. After we talked for a bit, she said, okay, I think I have an idea of what you might be interested in. Give me a moment. Leaves the room. Comes back with this beautiful velvet tray. Not of all these obscure rings and stones. It was just stones. And it was stones that were in my price range, in the style that I was looking for. So it was all tailored specific to me. And it was casual. She was smiling, friendly. And what she could clearly understand was the wide range of emotions that my wife and I had. She was actually with me. So the way I did this was she actually got to pick out the stone, pick out the ring. She just didn't know when she was getting it. Mm-hmm. So and when we went to that White House, what we had told her was we were invited as their guest for a thank you banquet for the work they did on the Olympics.
Oh,
And she
okay.
didn't believe it. This was 2 years to the day from when we met, until we actually pulled up to the White House. And then she starts chirping to my buddy's wife, "Oh, I didn't believe it. I really thought I was getting engaged today." And she, of course, knew. She's like, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I'll talk to Lee. I'll see, what I can do."
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so we get to the White. So she didn't know when she was getting it, but we had this wonderful experience of purchasing first the stone. Then, once we selected the stone, went through the same exercise around the setting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so delightful. There was no pressure to buy. It had a mix of education. I could clearly she had expertise.
Yeah.
Clearly, I could tell she understood all these emotions from, "This is a lot of money. This is like forever."
Mm-hmm.
And all the other emotions that come with getting engaged. It's not just about the stone itself.
Yeah.
And clearly she understood all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of the most powerful things for salespeople. They miss it, is when that person on the other side of the desk feels like you understand them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, is that powerful?
The thing is that most people just want to feel seen and heard.
Yes.
And if you can make people feel seen and heard in the buying process, you have differentiated yourself. You have won them over to your side. Yes. Exponentially.
Yes.
It's interesting, as you were describing that story and the experience in the store, it reminded me of all of the talk around the product-led growth movement versus the sales-led growth movement. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of those people that it's never an either or situation. It's usually some kind of combination of the two. Yes. And so as you're describing it, that to me is a product-led growth movement, whereby instead of, I think some people think of product-led growth means that we show them the products right away. But what it really is about is understanding what it is going to be specifically important to that individual, and then showing them the products that are going to help them. It's not showing them everything, but it's customizing the experience for them.
Absolutely.
There's, so many technology tools out there that they have 40 different features and benefits, 140 different applications. And for whatever reason, salespeople feel that they need to show them all. But most people are going to buy something because of one or two things, not because of all of the things that it can do. In fact, you're probably hurting yourself because you're overwhelming them with information.
Buyer paralysis.
Yeah.
Here's the punchline, though, on that story. Did I think that their diamonds were better than any of the other stores? No. Mm-hmm. Was their price any better? I don't think so, but I guess I never shopped it either.
Right.
Never shopped it. That experience just led me to say, this is who I want to do business with.
Because you know that that's the experience that you're going to have. And if you think about it now you've shared with everyone that experience and that company. And so, when you talk about how do we get more new logos in, how do we get more customers in, how do we grow net new business? Yes. It's because of the buying experience you create for the customers that you have now that are going to then share that with other people. Absolutely. The cost of that is going to greatly reduce your customer acquisition costs and increase your customer lifetime value, because when they're coming to you already from that point of trust and referableness, that is a game changer for organizations today when everything is getting so much more expensive to do.
Yes.
So last question for you. What, in an ideal world, would you have sales managers do with their salespeople to coach and train them so that they can create these kinds of experiences? So we talked about the bad things that sales management does. And, admittedly, it's because of the leadership impact on that. So what can sales managers do to help their sellers create the buying experiences that are going to differentiate them? Like if there were one or two things that you would have them all do, what would they be?
So I'll share this in the context of a baseball story. I have two sons that play college baseball.
Okay.
And when they were growing up, I used to take them for lessons with these some were former major leaguers, major league coaches. And it was interesting watching the things that they had them do at a young age that even today they still do, like hitting off a tee and what have you. And the idea is that there's certain fundamentals that you have to master at a young age, when you're in high school, when you're in college, when you're at the professional level. Professionals still hit off a tee, most of them every day.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Yep. Joe Mauer used to hit a few hundred a day off a tee. It's a fundamental.
Yeah.
So I don't have these magical words to give sales leaders to say, here's something you've never heard before. It's the fundamentals. For example, before you pick up the phone, before you go to a meeting with a prospect, do some homework. Find out about them, the role, the company. What do I mean by the role? If you're meeting with a CFO, you should know what the CFO organizations are, the associations, the periodicals, the things that they're reading, that they're being told to prioritize and focus on. So that when you're meeting with them, they say, boy, this person really understands CFOs. Now, I'm sure that's not the first time you've ever heard that.
Right. But still,
probably it may be the first time this morning, but certainly not the first time.
Right.
Right. But do we hold our salespeople accountable for that? You know, we talk about sales being a numbers game, and I only partially subscribe. I love numbers. I love statistics.
We all do.
But if we exclusively look at sales through a numbers game, we treat people like a number, and no one ever wants to feel that way.
Yeah. I often will say that sales is not just a numbers game. It is a mental game. And it is the mental game in sales, the psychology of it, and the management of self that I look at as the fundamentals. Because if you can master yourself, then you can adapt to any circumstance, any buyer. Like, these are things that will come naturally to you because you've mastered yourself as the fundamentals. And it's interesting too, because I have, veteran sellers that I work with, and, they're looking for these advanced techniques. But when I tell them that it comes back to being able to do the fundamentals really well, I get a lot of pushback. So I often will use the story of Tom Brady, right? Like, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And he had no less than 9 coaches. And each of those coaches was focused on a specific part of his performance. Like, he had one coach that would video him and his throwing arm and would say, adjust your elbow to here. And it's those small, tiny little adjustments that make the biggest impact on the outcome. And so, yes, focusing on the fundamentals, but I think also focusing on small, like you said in the beginning, that 10%, that small improvement that you can start to build on over time, rather than trying to get everything fixed all at once, because you as a manager are under pressure for that.
That's it. Little things that you can do that have a magical impact on results.
Yes, it's the little things that have the big impact. So in closing for this, what is the final piece of advice that, if you could only give them one piece of advice for salespeople today that are about to go on their discovery calls or their qualification calls or their demos, what's the one fundamental piece of advice you would give them?
I would look at the entire buying experience, that entire journey, and challenge yourself with this question. What is it that I can do different than the competition in every step of that journey that my buyers will find meaningful? It can't be different for the sake of different. It has to be meaningfully different. I could have joined the interview today with my wife's beach hat and, a summer shirt on. Different? Absolutely. But would that be meaningful to our audience? Of course not. Right. So it needs to be meaningfully different. You need to marry those two words. And those opportunities absolutely exist. I've never found a company that didn't have those opportunities. But look at each stage of that process. Challenge yourself with that question. Get your team together. You're asking about sales managers. Get your team together and brainstorm on that. You'll be shocked how many ideas are sitting right there in front of you that you can implement that'll have a magical impact on results.
Absolutely. I often say to my sellers, the close actually happens the moment you open your mouth to say hello. So if you can master the first part of that conversation, it's going to make the rest of the journey with that buyer go that so much more easier, because we make our first impression judgments within milliseconds.
Sure.
And so if we can master that part of it, then it's going to set the stage for you to be able to build that rapport, build that trust and that credibility with that buyer. But if you're showing up late for meetings, or, you're not sending confirmation email. Yeah, I know, like, that seems like a basic one, but if you're 1 minute late for a Zoom meeting, like, why?
Yes.
Drives me insane. But Lee, thank you so much for joining us today. And
Absolutely.
For all of you who are listening, if you have not read the book Sell Different yet, I please implore you to read that. You'll read the story that Lee was talking about, and go out there. Create the buying experience that you would be delighted by for your buyers, and you will see that growth happen. Lee, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that
Thank
everybody
you.
reaches out to you and for keynotes and for your books. And for all of those you are listening in today, if you have a buying experience that you want to share with the world, whether good or bad, reach out, because we are looking to change the way that people sell today by creating better buying experiences. So until next time, keep learning, keep sharing out there, and we'll see you then. Thanks all. And